our Thursday thought. Today it's going to be me and the gracious presence of Alex joining us to talk about 5 things that you can control in a pandemic. Now, before we start, there has to be a lot of disclosures as always. All of the information discussed, of course, is educational in nature and is not and should not be construed as legal advice. Estate planning services provided in conjunction with your licensed legal advisor, which we are not attorneys, and for any specific assistance, the services of an appropriate professional should be sought. So with that said, I thought I'd start with little quarantine memes that we've received from a few of you over the last couple days. I like this one especially from The Shining. The longer this quarantine goes, the more I think Jack actually held it together quite well. How many of you out there actually feel this way? And then also, of course, in Kentucky, we made national news because, as Jeff Foxworthy said, you know you're a redneck when your governor has to say no yard sales during a worldwide pandemic. Apparently, a number of Kentuckians had actually been doing some spring cleaning around their houses, and so they were actually holding yard sales over the last couple of weeks, and that had to be put to a stop. And then lastly, and this was just a fun little conversational piece that we had one day with a friend, said, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I'd go up to a bank teller with a mask on asking for money. It's a wild, wild world that we live in, and I'm sure all of you in these crazy, crazy times have been adapting. So that said, what are the 5 things that you can control in a pandemic? I'm just going to run through them real quickly, and then we'll hit on them point by point. So first, one of the first 5 things you control in a pandemic is just simply reviewing your legal documents. Now, the second thing you can do is you can review your life insurance coverage. The third thing you can do is you can organize your financial information. The fourth thing is you can do a home inventory for those of you that already haven't over the last month or so. And last, you can review how you prioritize time and money and how you spend that. So to start with legal documents, what I thought we'd do is just go through some basic groundwork on legal documents for those of you that may be sitting at home and say, I don't even have a will, Dave. Well, the thing is, it all starts with a will. And for those of you that don't know what a will is, the primary purpose of a will is simply your last will and testament. And all it does is it says, of the assets that I have, here's how I want them to be distributed. It may also legally specify any number of things. It may be that you want to leave a lamp or a picture to Aunt so-and-so. It may be that there's $1,000 you wanted to leave to the kid that mows your grass. It may be that you have a family farm you want to leave to a distant niece or nephew. But the idea would be with that, if you are married, a will would also specify and ensure that your spouse or your partner would receive your possessions and not everyone in the family if you don't have a will, and they all have to go to court and discuss how things are going to be split up within the family. So tell me, you please do tell me you have a will, because not having a will simply lead to just needless worries for your family. And at the end of the day, all legal documents and all things start with the will. So if you don't have a will, just come on, get it done. It's a real simple thing, okay? The second thing is your estate plan. Now, when it comes to your estate plan, a lot of you are probably sitting at home and you're thinking, well, Dave, I'm not that old, and I don't have millions and millions of dollars. I'm young, whether you're just out of college or whether you're married with 2 kids. You're saying, I'm building my wealth. I bought a home. I have a car payment. I've got a couple kids. I'm thinking about college savings, different things like that. Well, the thing is an estate plan is not just for the wealthy and old. That's what a lot of people think when they think estate plan. It's not. It's for everyone. In fact, there's different types of estate plans that you can think about. So a good estate plan, for example, for a young family will include naming someone to not only administer your estate, called a trustee or an executor, but it will also name a guardian to care for any minor children that you may have. Providing instructions for how your assets would be distributed. Like, for example, are your assets to only be used for health care and food and education expenses for the kids? Or is it okay for the guardian to also buy a minivan if they need it to drive the kids and their friends around to soccer practices? These are all things that can be part of your estate plan for you younger families out there. And then also, it would also name someone, it may also name a different person that would actually manage the inheritance that you'd leave behind for the children until they become adults. So a lot of times people think, well, the person that is the guardian, that I name as the guardian of my kids, is also going to have all the money. And actually what we see is that's not always the case. Sometimes the person that makes the most sense to parent your children going forward is a really good person and a good parent, but maybe they're not the best person when it comes to handling money. So in that case, you may say, well, I'll name my sister over here to take care of my children if something happened to me, right? But at the same time, I'm going to name, my buddy who's, he's an attorney, or he's in financial services, or he has a business and he just has his head on square, or my, my aunt who really is, just really good with numbers. I know she budgets, I know she saves, she squirrels money away. She'd be very prudent when it comes to making good decisions for doling out the money to the guardian and for my children. So just kind of keep in mind, they can be two different people. Okay. Now, the next area is, let's say that, actually I'm going to spend one more time on, let's say you're older, okay, and on the estate plan. The other thing that you need to be thinking about if you're older is all of that stuff too, right? Who's going to be the trustee, the executor, who's going to dole out funds, right? But also, this is a time to think, well, are any of my children that no longer need a guardian, do any of my children, are any of them spendthrifts, right? Are any of them people that maybe not, I don't want to necessarily trust with a large sum of money? If that's the case, again, you may want to name a trustee to take care of the trust for those adult children, potentially to a certain age, 35, 40, 45, or potentially for the rest of their lives, if you just think that they're in a situation where if they got whatever X number of dollars, poof, it'd be gone. Okay. At the same time, then, as you go through and look at your will, your estate plan, the next obvious thing to look at is to do an actual beneficiary audit. So you want to look through and say, have any of these beneficiaries that I previously named, if I had a previous legal document, or if I'm putting together a legal document, are any of the beneficiaries in an old legal document? Have they changed? Are they all still alive? Are they all still relevant? Are they also people that I want my money, my funds, my legacy to go to? Or do I need to change them? Now, when you're stuck in your house after a month and a half, I'm not necessarily saying this is a good time, we're all rational to the place of disinheriting people, but it is something that while you're sitting at home, you can pull out those legal documents, you can look through them, and you can make sure that everything is kosher and squared away. And then the last area within that is, maybe you're a family where one of the children, or there's a family member in your family, it could be a sibling, a child, a grandchild, that has some sort of special needs. One thing you may want to think about in that is a special needs trust. And people say, well, what in the world is a special needs trust, Dave? Well, there's different types of special needs trust, but the bottom line is, just for the sake of our purposes today, is it's simply a very important planning tool to make sure that there's financial security for the person in the guardianship arrangement. So if you have a child or a family member that does have a special need and that is not going to improve over the rest of their lifetime, and someone is going to have to act as their guardian, then you can put funds, and you can basically secure funds in a special needs trust that can be used and doled out by the guardian for their benefit. But at the same time, that special needs trust, by leaving money in the special needs trust, you won't jeopardize any access that your family member has to any government benefits, such as Medicaid or any kind of supplementary Social Security income. So this allows, by having that special needs trust in place, it allows that person with the need to be able to continue to participate in any types of government programs offered, right? While at the same time, any funds in this trust are able to be used to augment those services. So, and then lastly, just trusts in general. You know, a lot of people ask us questions from time to time. You know, what's the benefit of a trust? Why do I even need a trust? Or I went to a state, you know, educational seminar, and it talked about putting everything in a trust. You know, what's all that about? Well, the idea is simply that a trust can act to remove assets from your estate. So, you know, let's say that I've got this water bottle, and it's a very important water bottle. Well, right now the water bottle is with me. So if anything happens to me and I have to fill out any kind of financial documents or paperwork, right, I've got to declare this water bottle. On the other hand, let's say I want this water bottle to go to a family member, or I want it to go to a charity enterprise. I want to protect this water bottle so that nobody can access this water bottle, can take this water bottle. I could place this water bottle in a trust, and now it's no longer with me. Okay, now that's a very simplified version of how a trust works, but there are ways in which you can place assets in trusts, and there's different types of trusts. We're not going to go into those today, but the bottom line being there are different types of trusts for different purposes, where if you want to truly protect, like for example, a family farm or Dave's water bottle, you can do so in a way that preserves that asset and allows that asset to be passed on to future generations while not being part of your personal estate upon your death. So if you have any interest in that, or you have any assets, and you're thinking like, well, maybe I do want to look and think more about trust, give us a call and we can definitely get you in contact with an estate attorney that can handle that particular need. Now, the next area that I want to go into is review your life insurance coverage. Now you may say, why in the world, Smith, do I want to review my life insurance coverage? Well, the thing is, there's most likely a number of different amounts of coverages that you have out there. When we talk to people all the time, I say, dig out those old policies, and for you and your spouse or significant other, sometimes there's a really small, like those Gerber life policies that maybe your parent left you or bought for you when you were a child, and then as you grew up, they said, here's a policy. It's $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000. Very small policy, paid up, meaning you don't have to make any more payments on it. But you probably just had that maybe stored away in a drawer somewhere. Well, dig that back out. Let's take a look at that. There may be additional coverage that you may have bought from at, one time when way back in life, you got your first job and someone approached you and said, hey, you need some life insurance to make sure this, or you got married and they said, hey, or you had children and they said, hey, or bought your first house with the spouse and they said, hey. These are all things that people buy life insurance for, right? So dig out all those policies. Let's take a look at what you have. Dig out the policies that you have and the information on your policy from your group insurance coverage as well. And let's take a look through that and try to figure out not only the amount that you have, but then the biggest question that everyone always comes up with after they look at those policies is, do you have enough coverage? Now, if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, well, Dave, do I actually have enough coverage? If you're asking the question, I always say it probably means you don't. But it's a difficult question because there really is no easy answer. You see, you never buy life insurance, right, to use for your death. I don't buy it to use for my death. I only buy life insurance because I actually love someone else. That's the only purpose for it. I just want to make sure that if I'm not around to take care of them, that life insurance completes the financial plan that I have for my family members so that they're not having to scurry around and change life and sell the home and walking around the street like zombies. I want the kids to be able to go to college. I want all of those things and those plans that I have. I want those things to automatically complete. And that's the purpose of life insurance, is to make sure that those that you leave behind continue to go on. So the answer is, do you have enough? It's a really actual simple calculation that we can do. It doesn't take a lot of legwork, okay? If you are looking through your policies and you dig them out and you say, I don't know if I have enough or not, just let us know. We can run a quick calculation and do an actual review. In life insurance terms, they actually call it a personal human life economic value. What does that mean? It means, what is the value that if a life insurance company looked at putting insurance on you, that they'd say, Dave Smith is worth X amount, right? So we can quickly figure out if you have the appropriate amount of insurance to cover all of the things that you'd want to continue to happen if you were not around to take care of. So if there's that gap, we'll help you fix it. And there's seriously no time like the present to do that. Because what else do you have going on right now? We're all just stuck inside. So you might as well look through it and work through it. Now, for those of you that work with us, I know that we've taken every single one of you through a kind of human economic value analysis. And for those of you that said, hey, what amount do I need? I want to make sure my family's taken care of. I'm not worried about you because you took out that insurance. There's no problem with that, and I appreciate that. But there's also some of you that, that I do get a little concerned about. And it's not just because of this pandemic. I mean, sure, pandemics, there's no time like a pandemic with everyone, every moment we turn on the news, all we hear about is how many people died today, which I guess really isn't any different than any other day, except it's a pandemic, right? So it's suddenly a more important number. But the thing is that when you think about, life insurance, the group that I'm the most concerned about in all of this is the folks that said, what's the number? And then they came back to me and they said, no, I don't really need that much, and I think that's that's kind of a scary thing. So if there's some of you out there that we said, here's your number, and you bought a lot less than that, just because maybe at the time that's what fit in your budget. There's nothing wrong with that. I get that. You have to be able to afford it too. But if you're in a different place financially and you say, well, maybe I do need to, or maybe you've had another kid or two since the last time we reviewed that, because I know for some of you, it's been a few years, right? Then maybe just give us a ring and let us take you through it. There's no judgment at all in that. We're just here to help you. And what I want to make sure is that every one of the families we work with is appropriately covered. God forbid something would happen to you. Knock on wood, nothing will. But, we just want to make sure that there is a plan in place for you. And then that brings us back to the very last group of people that I don't just lose sleep about. I'm really actually scared for a lot of those people. And it's the folks that are relying strictly on their employer-sponsored plan. So there's tons of people that I talk to, and they kind of make the joke of, when I talk to them about the life insurance, they're like, oh, it's no big deal. I mean, she'll marry someone else, right? Or he'll, just go on and no big deal. This is a pandemic. I mean, who's she going to marry? Pandemic Phil? I mean, the dating is kind of limited right now, right? And do you really want the person that you left with your children on this earth to have to remarry and have to do all that? Or do you want them to be taken care of? Well, a lot of people will say, well, I don't need any personal insurance. I just have my employer coverage, and my employer coverage gives me a certain number of times my salary. Let's just say, for example, that you're making $100,000 a year, and so you get 4 times your salary, and so you have $400,000. That's well and great, and that may pay off the mortgage, and that may provide for a little wiggle room money, for the family. Maybe start a college fund for the kids. But past that, it's not going to do much more. And then the other thing that you have, and if this hasn't been a wake-up call in the last 5-6 weeks, I'm not really sure what else is. But what if your employer lets you go? What if suddenly, out of the blue, they're like, we no longer need you because there's a pandemic. Well, I think it's important to note the reason why group insurance, is so inexpensive is because it covers you and it covers the group of people while you're employed at that employer. However, suddenly, if you're no longer employed, there is no group insurance. So you need to have, in my opinion, every single family out there, every single individual out there needs to have their own insurance policy that has nothing to do with their employer. So regardless of what employment decisions are made for you or what employment decisions you make for yourself, you always have insurance coverage. And it's not just about death. It's also about, let's say you work for a Fortune 500 company and then you suddenly say, you know what, I want to totally leave this company, go work for a nonprofit or go work for a startup or start up my own business, but you don't have any other benefits at that entity. Well, now you still, with that personal individual policy, have some life insurance on yourself. So those are the areas that I want to make sure as you look through your insurance policies, just ask yourself, do I have, what do I have? Is it enough coverage? And how much of my overall life insurance coverage that I have is really made out of things that are provided by my current employer? And if that is mismatched, or if there's only employer insurance and nothing else other than maybe like a $3,000 Gerber life policy that your parents got for you and your kid, then you need to really look at kind of balancing that teeter-totter back out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, and Alex is going to take us through organizing your financial information. Alex?
Hi. So the first couple of things that David mentioned are things that do require some help. You can't really draft your own will, state documents, all those things at home. You can get an idea of what you're going to do, but the actual creation has to happen through an attorney. Life insurance the same way. You can't write your own life insurance policy in your house. But what we're going to talk about is the way you can get organized and do some things with your free time right now that you can do right from home. It doesn't require going out and having any special tools. But it requires taking some time to focus on some things that will keep you busy, but also give you a chance to kind of identify where the important things in your life are and share those with your spouse if you have one, and be sure that that everybody's on the same page as far as where the documents are and where the policies are and where the tax returns are and who to talk to if things do happen. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a paper document side. I think that all of us still get a mixture of paper and electronic correspondence from all the companies we deal with, whether it's bills or records or whatever else is coming in, whether your employee benefits pack from your employer is still on paper, or whether it's a login that once a year you log in and take a look at your benefits and select your package from them. Those are all things that have gotten very intermixed in today's society. So what I can say in all this pandemic mess is that the last thing, as far as I know, that FedEx delivered to my house was a new filing cabinet. I'm doing this myself right now. So we assembled the filing cabinet the past couple of days, and have been going through all the various locations in the house where things have gotten stuck, some in the office and some things stuck in a guest bedroom closet and all kinds of different places over the years, and sorting out everything from tax records and things like that that are very obvious, but things like warranty paperwork and issues like that kind of just get scattered here and there over the years. So from a paper document standpoint, take some time and kind of go through and sort out the trash pile and sort out the keep pile, and find a good way to file those that normally you would kind of just sort things out haphazardly. The next step is what we do to kind of consolidate paper documents into a electronic record. Many of you use planning software that can be provided through us or even through some other organization that allows you to keep track of what's happening in your financial life. Most of those do have encrypted systems to be able to keep important documents available. So, for example, for us here in the office and for our clients, we use a platform called eMoney. eMoney has a online vault that you're able to store documents into. You can keep important records, things like your warranty information and insurance policies are easy to put in there. But even things like passport information and ID information that you want to have handy in case you ever need to access it remotely from a foreign country while you're traveling, if you ever get to again. we're able to store in that system. It's also a way of doing business and keeping track of things without having to be in front of people hand to hand, face to face all the time. So, for example, right now, this is tax season, even though tax deadlines are pushed out quite a bit. You have a 9-day extension there to do things. Well, yesterday should have been the culmination of tax season. As we're dealing with accountants and passing paperwork back and forth in a normal year as well as this year, because we use things like this online vault, we can have records that are accessible to them at 3 in the morning while they're working on your tax return. You can look at from wherever you are too, see things in real time all together. Gives us that ability to do things that before used to be almost impossible and still secure and encrypted way. So um, we can kind of take this as an opportunity to consolidate and have your passwords and your logins all go to these systems where it stores this data, and also take these paper documents, get some of those out of your way, out of your file cabinet, scan those in, save those to these online vaults, and be sure that it's there as you want to look at it in the future. It creates that permanent secure record for you. The next thing we look at are who to talk to and when. For so many of us, we have a insurance person, we have a car person, we have a person for all these different things or a place to go to. But a lot of times that person within our family is just referred to as, hey, the guy that does this for us. There's a key contact in there that's kind of just taken care of, but that isn't always shared and made available. Making a list of those important contacts is an important thing to do to have a really kind of a functional family if things do happen. So we know that one of our key points with clients going through is a lot of times we are a key contact, and we're the person that or the entity that talks to them about all their financial information, their employee benefits, all their investments. Well, in so many households, we have one spouse that kind of keeps the gate for that. They're the ones that's more interested in that contact, but we still make a really concentrated effort to be sure that everybody in that household knows who we are, who to talk to. So if things ever do happen, as inevitably will happen, they have that contact person in place in that comfort zone. When we take it a step beyond, there's a lot of different things that are a little bit more hands-off, that having that contact information saved and important, easy to get to way is equally necessary. Where I would say this again is in two different kinds of fashion. One's a more complex way where we keep it in our eMoney software, keep it in an electronic vault, and just keep a spreadsheet record of who's who and when we talk to them and how we use their services. Second thing is take apart the collection of refrigerator magnets that are from different pest control companies and different insurance agencies and all those different things, and be sure that we're keeping the ones that are important, keeping a record of who actually is the contact we are using for these items going forward. Really simple stuff that we get busy and just don't do. The last one is really the miscellaneous organization. What we see so often is there's a hodgepodge of all these different things in different places. Things are kept at the office, things are kept at the house. Just going through and making that consolidated record of just where everything is and what we actually have. That's an important part of this process too. Being sure that we have an idea of what actually is out there, because as David mentioned before, life insurance policies are a really important thing to have for a family planning issue. Wills, trusts, all those things are extremely important to have. But we have to be able to be sure that we know where to find those if things ever do happen, but also to be sure that our loved ones know how to find those as well. And beyond that, know that they're actually in place and that they do even exist. So those are really simple things. And Dave's going to talk to you about some simple things in a moment too that are very similar. But there's simple things you can do while we're trying to find ways to occupy ourselves that are productive, and things that we can actually control the outcome of and be sure that we're working towards some common goals and getting some progress made, even during this time where it feels like we're spending a lot of time just sitting around trying to fill the void of what used to be kids' soccer practice and kids' track practice and all these different social activities that we used to have. This is a way of still making those productive times that normally we would be busy during. I'll pass it back to Dave to talk to you a little bit about some more things that can be done right from home just like that.
Alex, it was everything I could do to stop from laughing while you were talking about the fact that you bought a file cabinet and are organizing everything in your financial life, because Alex and I, for those of you that know us, are like the odd couple, right? I'm the OCD guy that everything is like do in a file. And Alex always says the reason his desk looks like it does with piles of things is simply because his mind is clear. And so I think it's great that it's actually like speaking my love language, that he bought a filing cabinet and he's putting everything in order. There's no greater thing that could happen. So maybe this pandemic was all worth it. Okay, when it comes to your home inventory, everything now in your home is clean. I don't know about you, but my floors are clean. I mean, cobwebs that I had never seen before are gone. I have eliminated every wasp nest, every would be. I have punched down nails on my deck that had popped over the wintertime. I mean, it's really bad. I even started a small herb garden. But while everything is clean and everything is organized, why not go around and do a photo inventory of your home? The worst case is they're for replacement purposes. If God forbid some terrible thing happens to your home, whether it be, robbery or lightning strike or fire or knock on wood, none of that happens. But the best case is those wonderful pictures you took are the pictures that you can use when you list your house if you're planning on moving at some point. There's a lot of people that do this around Christmas time when their house is perfectly, decorated for Christmas. Of course, Christmas, I don't know about you guys, but the amount of Christmas stuff I put up in my place, it makes it look very cluttered. So when I take down that Christmas stuff, suddenly I feel like I have so much more space. So for those of you that have finally taken down your trees and cleaned everything, just take some pictures. And when you're taking pictures, make sure you take pictures not only inside, but also outside. So you want to catch everything from like armoires or closets inside, just showing that you got a bunch of stuff, okay? Because a picture's worth 1,000 words. You don't have to, my dad, like on your stereo equipment, if you have a stereo cabinet, my dad, when I was growing up, I always tell the story to people, but I caught him with a new piece of stereo equipment. I forget what it was, maybe an amplifier or something, but he was actually stenciling like Ed Smith and his social security number on it. And this is when I was a kid growing up. Okay, now, how many of us would actually stencil our social security on anything? But I said, Dad, why in the world are you doing that? And he said, well, this way, when the robbers come and rob us of our stuff, I'll be able to find this and claim this as mine. Of course, I think the house did get robbed a couple times growing up, and they never took that amplifier. So you do not have to stencil your name and social security number on any of your stuff, but just take pictures. And then on the outside of the house, make sure not just to pass the inside, but on the outside, take pictures of the foundation, take pictures around the house, take pictures of any fence line, any trees, right? Take pictures of the outside of your cars. You can always get the after picture. Take pictures especially of the garage, because just think about it right now. How many of you, if I actually walked into your garage today, and I have some free time, so don't think it may not happen, but if I walked into your garage today and took 5 things out randomly, just 5 random things, how many of you would actually really notice, right? There's a lot of us that have garages that look like that. So it's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a mess in the garage. That's part of, I think, just a traditional good garage. But make sure you just at least take pictures so that if suddenly something comes up missing, you can prove that you had it, okay? And then the other areas that I want you to think about are any kind of family antiques. If you have some kind of family antique, maybe some bone china or some crystal or something that, antique, table or something that was given to you, do a little feature from Antiques Roadshow and just shoot a little video, and you can save it in your eMoney vault, or if you have Apple, you can save it in your iCloud. But just save that little video talking about what it is. Because the kids may not know that it has any value. They may just toss it in the Goodwill pile down the road. So if it has some value, speak to it, but it also then helps you for that record of what you do have should a claim ever come up. And then lastly, any type of heirloom jewelry. Sure, it's easy to say, well, I've got this ring on my finger and it's worth about this, but there's necklaces, there's, things that were passed down perhaps, special ring, earrings, a bracelet, something that was passed down through the family that you may want to just say, well, just think of it in this way. If it's going to become a difficult thing to replace it if something happens to it, then what you may want to think about doing is calling your property and casualty agent, right, while you're in this stay-at-home phase, and actually saying, hey, I've got this piece of jewelry. Um, I did have it appraised at one point, so here's the appraisal, and I'd like to actually insure it for replacement value. So those are just some real simple things you can do um, while you're working on your home inventory. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to Alex.
All right, so that was a good summary of some things you can do that will help keep track of records if things ever do get lost. Now, one thing we'll talk about too is that age-old question of how did all the mess in your financial life, from a normal bill payment, time spent, accumulation of things that are happening, how did it all come together? Most of us have a wide variety of bills, whether it's simple stuff that's really straightforward, like the mortgage and utilities, to subscriptions, to all kinds of things that just you've accumulated over a long period of time. And for a lot of folks, the way that they're accumulated was kind of spur of the moment. Maybe you added your iTunes back when you first got your first iPhone. Whatever card you happen to have in your hand at that moment became your card that pays for all of your iTunes charges now. And maybe that's totally separate than what you're having your automated billing for your homeowner's insurance going through, and all these different things that are happening in your life. So we end up with a collection of bills that end up getting just pushed through from different accounts through automatic clearinghouses, different credit cards, debit cards, everything that's in your wallet in your hands has random things going through like that. This is a great opportunity to take a little bit of time and go through and just simply fix that. Take the time to call these different vendors, go through and consolidate things to be sure that, first of all, they're things that are actually important to you, that they're an important way to spend your money, that they're things you actually value and that you want to keep those bills occurring for, but also they're coming from the correct place. It may be that you have a more simplistic style of putting all those on the exact same checking account or credit card or whatever it happens to be, and paying those each month and being sure they're all carefully controlled. Or some of you play the credit cards points game and put different purchases on different cards for different reasons too. But being sure that you know what's happening and why, and also that everything that's going through is intentional. Um, for those of us that have kids as well, the kids can easily add things to something like an iTunes account that you're really noticing it sometimes. And when you look at your bill every month, it's $2 and you don't realize what's actually happening there. And it isn't $2 of your time to spend at that moment to figure it out. And then 5 years later, it hasn't changed. So there's a lot of things you can look at as you review your automated bills, just to make them more efficient, but also to have that internal family discussion of, what is this? Why are we paying for it every month? Do we want to keep doing this or not? Is it important to us? And it may be that things are more important to one member of the family than others, and that still makes them a viable thing to do. But just be sure everybody's on the same page, that everything that you're doing is for a reason. The next thing that we talk about is something that we have a different amount of and a different use for than we've had over the past few years. What to do with your time. Everyone right now is having a shift in how much time they're spending at the office, whether it's gone from none to working from home and spending even more time than before, but trying to balance things out between having a couple of conference calls and doing a load of laundry all at the same time, and being sure that the kids are doing their schoolwork and taking care of all those different things in the same moments that before were spread across in a different order of events. So time now has become a really different idea of what you do with it and how you use it and how much you have. Social time has been eliminated in a lot of ways because you can't really go out and see your friends and family the way you used to. Things that are related to kids' activities have been almost eliminated. Vacation time, all these things that would normally be big structural events that have us plan out our days, weeks, and months have really been dramatically altered. So now's a good time, when you're forced into that change, to figure out how you normally spend your time. Because at some point, eventually, one of these days, you'll get back into a normal routine again. And whatever that new normal is, you get the chance to control. You can control what happens in the use of your work time and your work schedule and your kids' activities and all these different things, to be sure that you're actually getting what you want as a person or as a family from that time and how it's spent. So take it as an opportunity to go back and have a reset and revisit how things are right now and how they're going to be when you get a chance to make those changes going forward, and we're able to travel freely and do the things that we all want to do again. The last part is that balance between commitments and family activities, being sure that you haven't progressively over a period of months and years overcommitted yourself to all these things that you have to do, but you don't really value. spend some time. This is a thing that you can do while you're sitting right at home without being able to go out and do all these different planning activities, and figure out what you want to have going forward. Prioritize those things. Be sure that that the things you're doing are valuable to you, either mentally or professionally, or whatever your prioritization is, and that you're doing all these things for the right reasons and the right time, and that you're able to really focus on what's going to be changing going forward. It will be a different world after this, and you can kind of choose how you want to make that different world look, and how you're going to spend this most important part of it, which is your own time and your family's time.
That's really good, Alex. When you think about like just commitments and family activities, I remember growing up in Seattle, it rained so much, 8 months of the year plus, that during soccer season, we'd actually put trash bags on underneath our jerseys just to be able to complete and compete in the games, because otherwise you were just soaking cold and chilled to the bone. And of course, this was like early Under Armour sports gear, right? Was just a giant hefty trash bag. But I never imagined that we'd actually have to wear masks as we played soccer as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all these types of sports and activities and just interactions with people play out going forward. So to review though, for you guys, the 5 things you can be doing at home if you've run out of all of the other stuff that you've been doing is pull out those legal documents, take a look and make sure, just a real quick look through to see, are the people that you picked as guardians appropriate still? Are the beneficiaries, still the people you want to receive an inheritance from you at some point? And if your marital situation has changed, is that something where you need to actually go back through and redo those legal documents? Second, on your life insurance, make sure that as you pull out those policies, look at the ones from that maybe you were given from your parents, look at any policies that you've purchased over the years, pull out your work employer benefits and that employer benefit insurance coverage, and just take a look at the whole thing. And if you have any questions on it, as always, feel free to give us a ring. The last 3 are just make sure as you organize those your documents, just think about how would my children or whoever would come in after me if something happened to me interact with this information, and what's the easiest way to format it so that they can find everything. And when it comes to the home inventory, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So just that could even be a project where you say, hey, I've got teenagers or I've got kids on their phones and they will not get, the phone is literally glued to their hand. It goes everywhere with them. Well, by gosh, give them that as a project. And if you don't like it, when they bring you the video, take a look at it, send it back out and have them make changes. So it can be a fun little family project. And then lastly, of course, is the review how you prioritize your time and money. Just make sure that you're not just endless small amounts of money, right? Or just going out the door on automatic charges that don't have to. So yeah, it may take a few hours of your time to rectify a few of those things or cancel some bills or make some changes on those things. But seriously, what else do you have? Just spend tomorrow doing that, and then you don't have to worry about it for another year. And I would be remiss to end any presentation on exact time. So I'm going to give you one last bonus slide, okay, for tuning in today. And this is, I think, the most important one of all of this is, keep in mind that I know all of you have skills that you can use for the greater good. And what do I mean by that? I mean, while in captivity, many of us have said, oh, we're going to improve ourselves. Last week I said, oh, I'm going to learn how to speak Mandarin Chinese so I can read the Financial Times over there and find out when their government releases all kinds of crazy viruses or whatnot. We'll see what happens with that. But the point is learning a new language is great and all, but it's not necessarily a requirement. In fact, a lot of people are saying that spending time in our stay-at-home captivity, and a positive thing for a lot of us could just be getting up, taking a shower, and calling a few people that day. But each of us have special skills that we can use. And some of the stories I've heard back just from an email I did out to clients last week on things that they're doing. I've heard stories of people that said, I grew up poor and I didn't even realize I was poor, but I learned how to sew at a very young age because I had to learn how to repurpose clothing and change it for fashion, right? And so now that same person is making masks And she said, I'm now in my, I think it was 5th generation of different types of masks that I'm making for friends, family, and healthcare workers, you name it. So that's a real skill set. You do not want me putting any kind of mask together. I don't have that. I have the gift of gab, right? So I call a few friends, talk to people, this or that. Other people, I've heard of people saying, hey, if you're elderly and you can't get out, let me know and I'll go grocery shopping for you, right? I've heard of people also, like we have a very good friend who's a nurse, and she's in the hospital constantly. Her kids are at the Y, and she said over the last couple of weeks, over the last, I guess, month, a neighbor on one side mowed her yard, and then a few weeks later, she just came home the other day to her yard being mowed by the neighbor on the other side, because they know her time is being spent 100% either hospital or the kids. And so just ways to be a good neighbor, but think about what are your skills that you have, whether it's the skill set of time, the gift of gab, an actual real skill like, sewing, or just you can go out and get a few groceries for people. Whatever it is, try to do something to do good for those around you, because there are a lot of studies out there that say, when we are focused on helping others, we end up accidentally blessing ourselves more, because, well, we're actually blessing them. And our situation and our problems tend to kind of fade. They don't go away, but they're just not quite as big a deal when we are focused on other people. So get creative today and bless someone. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Thursday. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot Alex or I emails. You have our email address, or give us a call at the office at 859-219-1006. That number again is 859-219-1006. And Katie will make sure that you get a hold of us and we'll give you a quick call back. So thank you for joining us. And this wraps up today's presentation. Have a great Thursday.